This week's Paddock Pass podcast comes to you with a slight American flavour. We headed to Los Angeles to be present at a star-studded launch for the Trackhouse team and also checked out round 4 of the AMA Supercross series at Anaheim. We got exclusive interviews with team manager Wilco Zeelenberg and, of course, the two riders Miguel Oliveira and Raul Fernandez, only moments after the white RSV Aprilias have been unveiled. We're also going to talk about the new Red Bull KTM... Oh, that was a drop. A new Red Bull GASGAS team livery, and preview some of our expectations for Sepang, as MotoGP finally awakens from a winter slumber next week with 3 days of shakedown tests, followed by 3 days of official testing in Malaysia. I'm Adam Wheeler, and we have Steve English busy on the ground at World Superbike tests, gathering content and eating crisps. But we have more than enough MotoGP crunch thanks to the other two rascals on this podcast. Firstly, it's the man in the hat, and usually a large one to fit that oversized brain, David Emmett. How are we, Dave? Have you been riding that red BMW GS much?
That is planned for this afternoon. So once I get off a call, I'll go to phone me mum, wish her happy birthday, and then get me motorbike and go riding around like the fool that I am.
Happy birthday to Mrs. Emmett.
80 she is today, so that's a decent innings.
Neil, have you booked your riding test yet?
Yes.
Good. And you're going to be going straight to nice. Full access?
I hope so. Yeah, all being well.
You sound very enthused about being a potential motorcyclist of the future.
Yeah. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the elite club of people with good sense and great taste.
Yeah, well overdue. Before we crack on, two pieces of important news. For 2024, we're going to be changing the Paddock Pass podcast slightly. When we have a round of MotoGP, then we'll be bringing you a show on Sunday evenings, recapping the Grand Prix, the events, the talking points, and with some exclusive slices of audio from within the paddock. This means our midweek show will be shorter and a bit more general. We'll also be offering much more on our Patreon channel, and we'll provide more details on that in the next week's show. The second piece of news, we have a special one for people that take an annual subscription to our Patreon channel, which works out at 10% cheaper than paying each month. All subs will enter a prize draw for 2 paddock passes to a MotoGP round of their choice. We'll be looking to make the draw at the first Grand Prix in Qatar on March the 10th, so get signed up now. We'll put the Patreon link in the podcast episode text and also on Twitter. We're not talking about thousands of people here, sadly, yet. So there's a great chance to win these passes that are normally not so easy to get a hold of. Wait, I forgot another piece of news. We'll also be running the Paddock Pass podcast MotoGP Fantasy League on MotoGP.com this year. Some of us have some pride to regain. So in the coming shows, we'll be plugging this. So listen out for details of how to join. It's completely free. And it's a chance to get some more prizes. And it'll be the 3rd edition, I think, that we'll be running. So, right, enough housekeeping for the moment. Let's talk
El Baruto.
House.
Did we ever find him?
Baruto. Yeah, the winner from 2023 hasn't got in contact yet. Some free Alpine Stars gear, well, free, I mean, well earned, is still waiting. So if Baruto, if you are a podcast listener, which, we would assume you are, then get in touch. Yeah, as I mentioned, let's talk Trackhouse, guys. White RSVs, did it sort of suit the palette?
Well, it wasn't really white, was it? It was blue and white stripes, or was it red and white stripes? I can't even remember. It was very obviously a homage to the old American flag thingy. It looked quite nice, but I mean, the reason that it's there is because they haven't got a title sponsor yet. They have got some sponsorships and some partnerships, including Stella Garda and GoPro, but they don't have a title sponsor of their own yet.
Yeah, it looked a little bit like the, was it 2004 when I think Shane Byrne and Jeremy McWilliams were on white Aprilias. Thankfully, the bike that's under Raul and Miguel is a good bit better than the one that those guys raced all those years ago, 20 years ago now. But yeah, probably if we're doing our little paint scheme wars, this would probably be the finest that's been revealed yet, I would say.
It was a pretty decent event. I mean, it was unusual. It was on the top of a hotel, quite a popular bar. in a place that was downtown, not downtown LA, but in Hollywood. I mean, it was a very kind of exotic location, if you'd like, and that was the point. The team had been doing their annual photo shoot, the studio pictures all through the day, and then did the presentation in the evening. You had a lot of kind of famous faces from American racing: John Kosinski, Wayne Rainey, Kevin Schwantz, John Hopkins was there, also Joe Roberts, as well as some other figures from the periphery of sort of American motorcycling like Roland Sands. It did seem sort of high profile in that aspect. And of course, all the Trackhouse racing team senior management are busy enough with NASCAR as it is. So it was a small venue. It was quite a short event, but it seemed to tick a box in adding a bit of glamour to the MotoGP grid and the presentations that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think it's also good that there is a presentation outside of Europe. Holding it in the US. Obviously, like the US is such an important market for MotoGP and for Dorna, and they're desperate to try to find a way in. So, like holding an event in LA, in Hollywood, I think was an important step. Even though the trouble is, like holding it inside in a bar, you don't necessarily see where you are, sort of thing. So all of a sudden, I understand why news reporters on the TV are standing outside instead of safely in a studio.
But I mean, Dave and I weren't actually there, whereas you were at. Was it a well-attended event?
Yeah, it was busy. I mean, it was packed, and like I say, it was in a bar, so it wasn't really kind of the pomp and presentation that we had at Ducati, where you're in an auditorium, so to speak, and there was a lot of formality with press conferences and whatnot. I think, as I mentioned, the team have been doing the photos, so there was a little bit of lethargy around, the extra work to be done. But Miguel Oliveira and Raul Fernandez by now are consummate professionals in that. So it was, I think it was a memorable team launch, I would say, and it's for like a team. I think they're going to make quite a big splash on the MotoGP grid this year.
Do you think there was, how much of a buzz was there around the event? I mean, was it just sort of like motorcycling royalty, or was there, did there seem to be more sort of buzz around it externally?
Yeah, I think the theme of it was very much, there was an exclusivity to it. There was not a great deal of media. I don't think a huge media coverage was the point of it. I think there was a knowing acknowledgement towards, like I say, the Grand Prix history of for America, and having Schwantz and Rainey there were important symbols of that. But it was small. It was like I say, just had that exclusive feel. You needed a special band to get up the whole roof bar, which the following evening on the Saturday had a queue around the block of people waiting to get in to party. Was exclusively roped off for Trackhouse, so it was it was cool.
We had Justin Marks on the show back in December, and he was telling us that it was his number one aim to have 224 bikes for his two riders in 2024. It looked like Miguel Oliveira was going to get preference on that. What was Raul's comments? What were Raul's comments? And did he mention that he might be on the 24 bike in Sepang?
There's no strict details on that yet. I think, Fernandez, Dave, we've been sort of like, not critical. Well, I guess we have been critical of his sort of progress in his development in MotoGP in the last two seasons. But I think 2024 is a season of reckoning for him. No firm details on the equipment they have, Neil. It seems that Oliveira is the main focal point for the 24 material. But Wilco Zeelenberg explains a little bit more in the interview that I managed to grab with him. It was an exclusive, I'm using that word a lot, exclusive kind of session with him. And we recorded it just before the presentation when he finished his photographs. And I tell you what, let's just lead right into it now and then straight onto the riders. Okay, so in the Tommy Hollywood Hotel, Wilco, it's great to talk to you. We've been doing all of last year with the team's podcast, but now we're actually on the Paddock Pass podcast. So we know the drill. But first of all, how's it been going? Because, turbulent times at the end of 2023 and now at the start of a new adventure.
Yes, well, it has been a very exciting winter, I can tell you. Of course, the end of the season, result-wise, with Raul went really good. So we were very happy with that last race. And of course, Miguel was injured again and decided as well to to restore his arm and did the arm operation. So that was kind of all fixed and done. But of course, that last race, with all the changes and the announcements, and of course that hit us quite hard, I have to say, and I have never experienced a worse situation than that situation. So you cannot say nothing, and you're not in control of the big decisions, and of course you still need to perform, because finally it all came back to Wednesday or Thursday in Valencia, so so it has been a very tough winter. Normally you can recover quite a bit and relax a bit, and especially physically from all those races, because we never experience a more hard or more difficult situation than flying from India, Indonesia, Japan, Phillip Island, Australia. So, we had a tough couple of races behind our belt, and then of course also ending up basically in this difficult situation created a very hectic winter time, and we did not relax a lot.
Wilco, was there part of you that thought, oh no, not again? Because after Petronas leaving the team had to almost reset a little bit, and then it was like another period of instability. You must have been maybe fed up with racing at some point, the way things work out.
Well, yeah, not fed up with racing, but you are fed up with the politics, and of course the sports finally also we can run because you need money, you need to pay things, and it's expensive. And of course, being in a position as a satellite team is not always ideal. I've been with Yamaha so many years where everything is, planned a long time before, and there is always budget. And of course, they're trying to find sponsors and reduce the cost. But with the satellite team, you just need to be able to run the show and make sure you finish the season in a decent way and not overspending too much. And that's a part of the deal. And of course, losing Petronas was very painful because they were a title sponsor. And even last year with the crypto data, there were the owners, and they get taking away the starts. And I never experienced that one, I have to tell you. And looking to what situation we are now, still also proud about the group. We still stick together even when we have a new owner. And I don't say it's the same, because it's completely different than last year, but all the guys who were on board last year, they are still with us this year. And that also means a lot, so that we stick together even when there were, of course, a situation where it was very unsure who's paying and when is paying, and what about the contracts that we already signed with RNF. So it was very unsure, everything, but we stick together, and we get out of it, hopefully much stronger even than we were last year.
Were you like the rest of us, where you had to look up Trackhouse on the internet to see what this group was, what this team was?
Yes, 100%. I never heard about Trackhouse before, until maybe 1 week before Valencia, and then I already met PJ, because they were planning ahead, and we were really tight in the schedule, because Valencia test is already planning 2024. So there was a very strange situation, but we survived it, and now we can when doors are closing, also others are opening. And clearly with Trackhouse we reach a very professional and motivated group of people, and who knows everything about racing, even if it's four wheels, but they do the same game with a different tool, I would say. And this is what you feel directly.
Wilco, so many years with Yamaha, the Japanese, being in a factory setup, then moving to like largely a Malaysian operation, and then also, with the Romanian experience last year. How have you found like the American culture? I know it's early, but what kind of things have you seen where you think, oh, okay, that's maybe a bit different? Yeah,
well, the first thing that I can say, they always think big, so it's a big country. So, the interest is huge. and they plan ahead far away, you know. So actually for them this also didn't arrive too early, because they were planning ahead for 2025, and suddenly this train passed by and they needed to hop on. And also for them, of course, it was critical, because finally you only have 2 months to prepare yourself, and actually it's not enough. You need to plan a year ahead to be everything fine-tuned and discussed step by step through all the contracts and all the decisions. But we all needed to do it in 2 months basically. And the only thing I can say is they are really looking ahead, and this is something that is very important, especially in MotoGP, because you know, we are planning now Sepang test, but you know, our group is already thinking about Austin and 2 or 3 races later. You know, the rest is already done and booked and planned. So this is something what they already have really more, I would say, than not than the Japanese, because also the Japanese are thinking ahead a long time, but the Italians and the Malaysians as well. They look 1 or 2 weeks in front of them, and you know, planning wise, you need to have a couple of months looking forward, and that helps a lot, and it makes everything more quiet, but also it helps the team to stay calm. You know, you cannot change things tomorrow, you know, because we planned already many things and decide things, and difficult to say what, but it's everything, you know. Every decision that you take, you need to stick with it, and if you made a mistake, you need to learn from it and plan ahead and decide something better for the future, but not quickly change it because of you make a mistake, you know. So this is something that that I learned out of experience. Just stick with the plan, and even if it's a big mistake, of course you need to adjust, but if it's just a minor failure or a change of booking or a change of schedule, then you need to stick, especially if the group is big. We have 30 people flying around the world. You cannot go left, right, up and down the road. You need to stick to the plan.
Do you think there might be some different things popping up in the team this year? I mean, for example, they have a DJ in NASCAR. I mean, could the pit box be slightly lively? Some spinning lights and a glitter ball?
I don't know. You never know, but I heard he's there. I think with the Daytona 500 next week, he's playing there. So it would be nice, I think, to make a combination with like a festival, but if there is if we plan, or Aprilia plans something and he can sing, for example, or he can play, or then it would be nice, you know. So it makes something different, something special. But I think we need to focus on racing, and it's nice that that Pitbull is with us, because it makes, you know, even the youth also they don't know nothing about racing, but they only name Dad, you know Pitbull? I said, oh, sorry, you know what I mean? I missed the clue completely. Yeah, this is this new guy. Oh, Pitbull, okay. So. This is interesting for the sport. I hope it gives much more fans to the sport as well. You know, this is something that we need to understand and learn as well.
Well, from your days with Jorge Lorenzo, we know you can dance, so maybe you'll be showing us again this year, perhaps.
Yes.
But, speaking on the racing, has it helped? Like you say, a lot of the team have stayed intact, and you're moving straight into the new season, same riders, finally getting healthy. Does that mean the transition to performance is going to be, you know, it's not going to be a big bump in the road, is it? Because things are just going to roll on.
Yeah, exactly, roll on, and especially the bad luck that Miguel had. I hope we leave that behind us, you know, because he had finally 2 or 3 operations last year, and a lot of crashes where he was involved in, basically. But his performance, especially race by race, on the moments when he was hot, you know, was good. And of course, he also had a difficult time when he really suffered fitness and in the muscle in the arm. But saying that, after a year being on this bike, the second year on the same bike, even when we will have newer material, yeah, I experienced that with Franco and Fabio as well. The first year they were so good, and Wilco, what can you expect next year? I said they will be better because they know the bike exactly. And the first Friday they already have a better rhythm than the year before because they needed to learn the bike. And that will be the same with Miguel and Raul. Of course, Miguel did not do all the races, so some races he will be the first time on that track with that bike. But that's a big benefit, and we should not underestimate. And also the 2023 bike, what Raul tested as well in Valencia, was directly a big step. And even now we are pushing for the 2024, and hopefully that even makes another step, because it's clear that the competition is very tight, and you cannot just rely anymore on too much old bikes, you know. So it's not that the 2023 probably is not good enough, because I feel that that level is really good.
What's the official word on that, Wilco? Do you know, when the spec for machinery, is Miguel going to have a different bike to Raul? What's the official word at the moment?
No, actually we try to have as quick as possible 2024 material. But of course, the 2024 is still under development. And yeah, this is something that we need to wait and to see how quick there is material available. Of course, we have pulled out a date and a timing plan. Not telling you that basically, but yeah, it would have been easy to say, no, we use 2023 material this year, but actually Trackhouse pushed a lot. And yeah, one side you can worry from if they are able to supply enough to be on time ready, but on the other side, what do we have to lose? You know, if our target is finishing around 10th, you know, then the target is not good enough. You know, you want to be closer to the top 5, you know, because then it makes sense to invest as well, and to be on the podium, of course, is something that we still are looking forward to. But yeah, can you do that with 2023 material over the whole season a lot? Will be difficult. And okay, race by race, of course, especially when the tracks are longer and you need all the performances what there is. Yeah, the competition is too tight to accept that and realize that 2023 will be good enough. So that's why we pushed hard to get the freshest material available as possible.
Lastly, Wilco, have you ever been to a MotoGP bike or team presentation in Hollywood?
No, never. This is my first time, and I have to say there were a lot of good actors there today. It was funny to see, and no, it's, you know, I think having an American team is something that you know, the country is so big, and you know, the interest in this country and the results have been so good. So I think they really want to go back to that, but they need to step the game up, you know. And the competition in the Spanish Championship and Italy with Valentino's Academy, you know. So everybody is growing, and I think there is a lot of talent here in America, but you need to have the right contest and the right competition, and that makes those boys better and better. And of course, with the American team already in MotoGP, I hopefully it will be a good push for them.
Thanks, Wilco. Hope you can enjoy your big margarita later on the roof when the bikes are unveiled.
I hope so too.
Miguel, we're here at the Trackhouse launch. First of all, the most obvious question is, how are you physically? Did you get yourself sorted over the winter?
Well, I had a slightly longer winter. For that reason, I could recover 100% to start the season. It has not been an easy road, but yeah, happy to be here.
What do you think about the whole change of the team and everything? It must have been a really confusing period, you know, from Valencia to this point. What's been the emotions?
Yeah, for sure, it has been first of all a surprise, because we were not expecting the previous team to withdraw, and I think it opened a really great opportunity for Aprilia, for us as a team, to start a new project. You know, for sure everything was done in a very short time. For that, I appreciate a lot the effort of Aprilia technically to build every material to provide finally 6 bikes for the test, 6 new 2024 Aprilia bikes. And I just want to get my hands to work and really pay back in results the effort and the trust that Aprilia deposit on me. Yeah.
There's been a lot of changes behind the scenes, but is it important that you still have the same crew, the same people in place, that there's consistency there, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Trackhouse bought a house with furniture, and all the furniture is there, and I think it's a good one to work. I know the team, and I don't have to break down the ice again with the new crew. And for sure, this is a positive point. We know the bike, we know the good points, we know the points where we have to work, and even if it was a pretty unlucky season for me, we still gathered some good data that I can start to work on myself. And basically we need to discover a new bike as well, because everything will be slightly different. But as every good bike, you need to work a little bit on it until you get to the right point.
Miguel, what are you hoping for from the new bike? I mean, is there something where you thought, listen, last year we needed to fix that because we were struggling?
I mean, for sure. One thing we expect more is power. We want to achieve a better stopping, because we tend to lose a bit of time on brakes, especially tracks where you brake really long time, and gain a little bit everywhere else. As every manufacturer looks for performance in every area, we, Aprilia try to work where we lacked the most, which was braking and a little bit of power. I think we got a little bit of that, according to the engineers. So now we'll check that on track.
There's a little bit of a party starting here, so just 2 more questions. When this team changed and became Trackhouse and was an American team, I mean, you couldn't have imagined having a launch in the top of a Hollywood kind of hotel. I mean, it's something a little bit different, even for you in your long career.
I mean, I had I had 10 different team launches, and I have to say, coming to LA for the team presentation, I think for a rider, it's never a very exciting time when you get to be on your ladders, taking pictures for an entire day and doing the videos and the interviews. But I have to say, it's quite exciting for me, because to come to LA, it's quite symbolic, to be here with an American team, American colors, in the center of LA. It's quite unique.
Lastly, 44 races this year. It's going to be a marathon, isn't it? How do you kind of feel about that? Is it also taking a little bit of a different level of preparation to get sorted?
I mean, the preparation, I think, will come also with the kilometers. I had, a good winter. I put on a good amount of work physically. But the specific work you can only do on the bike, and that comes with the races, with the kilometers that you do. Especially finishing the races is important. And I think we are all, as a group of riders, a little bit more adapt to the style of the weekend on the races. So I think hopefully we'll have less crashes. And this will allow us also to be healthy throughout the whole season, which is difficult.
Thanks, Miguel. Best of luck. Raul, good to see you. You're looking very white. I mean, the new livery with Trackhouse is, the fans are going to be able to see you easily on the track.
For me, it's amazing. For the mechanic, maybe after 2 races will be the worst one. We have a lot of white. They will have to clean a lot with the carbon. Anyway, I feel different, and I feel really happy. I feel that this year can we do something really well. So also I'm really happy to be part of the first American team. It is for me a pleasure. They have a really nice mind. I love how they want to manage the team, how they want to do, or how they see this sport, no? So yeah, I'm really happy. So I really enthusiastic. I want to start tomorrow the season and see how we are.
Raul, I think you said this already. It's important that you've got consistency going into another year, because it's the same team, the same motorcycle. That's something you didn't have last year, and now you have some momentum, right?
It is the first time since I arrived to MotoGP that I will have the same bike, same team. So for me, it is good. I will not to adapt the bike. I will not to adapt the tire. I will not to adapt the mechanic. This is we get some time, some free time that I will be focused on me again. Yeah, I honestly I will not to think on the result. Honestly, I want to be on the top since the first race. I want to be constant, honestly, but the first target that I have is try to feel what I feel the last year, the last part of the last year, and try to enjoy on the bike. If it's arrive, I know that I will be fast and I will be on the top.
It's important in MotoGP that people give you time. I mean, you're still a young rider. You're still looking for experience. If you look at someone like Digia last year, it shows that when you get the good feeling and you get the right package, then the results are possible.
Yeah, for me in general, in the sport, no, it's not just on the motor sport. In general, on the sport, when you are in a professional level and you have a really good moment on your career, to lose the confidence is too easy, but to get again this confidence is too difficult. What I want to, what I mind with that, I say with that, or what I think with that, is we are quite younger. We don't have the experience. We arrived to MotoGP. Now I will speak about our sport. You arrived to MotoGP, and for us, or what we want to do is try to win, but it is not easy. It's the best category in the world, the best manufacturer, the best team, the best rider. So sometimes we need more time that the people want, no? That is something that the people, I think, that have to understand, that it is not easy for us, because the first people that want to win is yourself, no? So yeah, for me it is something that the people have to think, no? We want to win, and we are here because we want to win. I don't want to be here to do some lap on a track.
Lastly, what happens now? Do you supercross tomorrow, some cheeseburgers before you go home? What's the plan?
Cheeseburgers, no. Massimo is here, he kill us. No, but yeah, I will go to Supercross. It will be my first event in Supercross. I'm really fan of that. I appreciate a lot what they do, because sometimes when I do motocross or when I see someone that do very well motocross on live, it's quite amazing. I cannot imagine when they have to be super consistent on the jump, super clean on the drive style. So yeah, I want to see. I cannot to wait for tomorrow, and yeah, I think I will enjoy a lot.
Thanks, Raul. Buena suerte.
Thank you.
Yeah, really interesting comments there from Wilco and the two riders, Ed. You just mentioned some of the names that had been at the launch, the likes of Rainey and Schwantz, but John Kaczynski, that's the guy that pretty much disappeared off the motorcycling earth after he retired, I think, in the early 2000s from AMA Superbike, where he was riding. And I've heard a couple of journalists say that they've tried to contact him in recent times and basically heard nothing back. What was any idea what he's been up to? I think he's got heavily into real estate now in his kind of retirement.
Yeah, that's the rumor. I didn't get a chance to speak to him. He seemed quite popular at the event. I mean, he was always deep in conversation with someone. I was slightly worried about where I was standing. I thought he might want to hoover up once I'd moved, but it was yeah.
You dropping crumbs again?
Yes, I was very, very paranoid over my nibbles. It was it was good. It was unusual to see him, like you say, Neil. But yeah, no sort of update on what he's been doing. A reminder that we have some excellent backing on the Paddock Pass podcast this year, and that's thanks to KTM. 2024 is the 30th year that the Austrians have been making their Duke naked bikes, from 125s all the way up to 1390s and the fierce Super Dukes, a model that I had the absolute pleasure to ride around Portimao. The Duke family has something for every rider at any age or ability. Torque for days and style that turns head. Speaking of KTMs, GASGAS guys now have some Red Bull branding.
Yeah, I mean, was it unexpected? I'm not quite sure. It actually does make the bike look a lot better because the red, I mean, as much as I like the red bike, it was quite sort of plain. And the leathers especially, the leathers actually of the riders actually look class. So I was quite impressed with that. It's not really surprising that Red Bull are sort of stepping in. It's also a sign of the inextricability of Red Bull and KTM, that they are, I mean, I want to say functionally a single company, but they're not at all. It's just that they are very, they work very, very closely together, and everything sort of KTM touches, then Red Bull are going to get behind in some way or another. So it's not really surprising. And also I think it's important. Well, I think it is. It looks a lot better when you have some kind of sponsorship on bike rather than just a great big gas all over it.
Yeah, there was no massive revelations from the launch from the riders. Certainly, it was everything that you expect to hear. Pedro Acosta, you'll be surprised to know, is in no rush, and he's not having any pressure being put on him. He did make the very good point that there's no point in placing great expectations on his shoulders after one day on the bike. I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He'll be able to give us a bit more of an idea how he feels his season could go after the 6 days of running at Sepang, where he'll have 3 days at the shakedown and then 3 days at the official test. But Augusto was quite telling in that. I asked him, will we see Pedro challenging you and the other KTM guys midway through the season, at the end of the season? And he said, no, like way before that. He just said everything that, Pedro has touched so far has kind of immediately turned into results or some kind of speed. So he thinks he'll be pretty quick from the off. And then I think Nico Goyon was quite interested in the team manager now of the GASGAS, the Red Bull GASGAS factory racing team. He was basically saying that he expects Augusto to kind of double his points haul for 2024. And, Augusto is absolutely aware that he needs to come out swinging. He needs to start performing very, very well from the start of the year if he wants to retain that seat for 2025.
The interesting thing I thought that Pedro Acosta said was the time when he had expectations, when he placed expectations on himself, was in 2022. And as I've mentioned before, like I was at the Moto2 test in Portimao when Pedro Acosta got on a Moto2 bike for the first time, and basically everyone there was saying, he's going to be champion this year. I think he expected to be champion as well. And I think he really learned his lesson in 2022 that things aren't as easy as they seem. So he's putting a lot less pressure on himself. I mean, there's always going to be the media. He was interesting talking about the media, saying, I only listen to what I want to listen to. But he is aware of how much pressure there is being put on him by the media, or the expectations from the media. But he's just, sort of waving them away and trying to point out that, lads, I haven't been on the bike that much, and it is quite a lot harder than it used to be.
I like the way he was talking about that 2022 season when he had so many expectations coming into his rookie year in Moto2, and he said it was a total disaster. Pedro, you finished 5th in the championship and won 3 races that year. You were rookie of the year, so I'm not sure I classify that as a total disaster. But Nico Goyon also talking about Pedro's adaptation on that when was it, Tuesday at Valencia, and just saying how impressed that the team were, how naturally he looked on the bike. His riding position looked to be the correct one by the end of the day. And again, he didn't want to give too much away in terms of expectations, but he did say that how he kind of quickly got up to speed with the carbon brakes. That's one of the biggest things that rookies normally have to adapt to, as well as where to place themselves on the bike and learning all the different devices. He said it was quite an impressive achievement that he got to where he did at the end of that first day in Valencia.
Guys, we went to Ducati and we experienced a very kind of impressive launch in terms of presentation and everything involved with, unveiling a MotoGP or a racing effort for the year. GASGAS was a different thing. I mean, it was an online event. I mean, it was heavily image orientated. The video was pretty cool. And then Zoom calls with the protagonists afterwards. Did we kind of prefer that? And what do we think of the KTM group and the way that they're sort of mixing up the brands? I mean, we saw Husqvarna come into Moto2 for the first time last year. It seems that CF Moto is going to be spreading its wings. The future for GasGas seems to be chopping and changing. And of course, the Pira Mobility Group now have MV Agusta as well under the umbrella. So that could also be something that also comes into MotoGP in the future.
Well, one thing, as I was typing up Pedro Acosta's interview that really started to annoy me was the fact that everyone now has to refer to it as the Pira Mobility Group, because that's a lot more letters to type than just KTM. It is. I mean, it is clear that KTM or the Pira Mobility Group are trying to really use racing as a platform to launch their brands. I mean, you're not just seeing it in MotoGP, of course. The fact that I think Jorge Prado is on a GasGas rather than a KTM. That's a big thing. I mean, Jorge Prado is maybe the biggest thing in MXGP at the moment, certainly the biggest Spanish thing in MXGP. And so to put him on a GasGas rather than on your flagship brand, that says a lot. So it's also going to be interesting to see how he develops. Pedro Acosta was quite interesting talking about, working with Paul Trevathan. That relationship between sort of crew chief and rider, I keep saying this, is the most interesting in all of racing, because there's so much of it that you have to. So much of it relies on trust, confidence, communication, naturally understanding with each other. Pedro was saying, like with his former crew chief, the relationship was like being like a father and son, and they only had to look at each other to understand what was going on. And like Paul has to build up that same level of relationship. But the fact that he's already taking a lot of, he's paying a lot of attention to Acosta, the fact that there's already a lot of communication between them, like his openness and his clarity. Pedro said, what I really liked about it is he's very clear. He doesn't. He tells you exactly what he thinks. He tells you when you're doing well, tells you when you're not doing well, and he's very clear. And there's no sort of there's no dissembling in there. It's just sort of very, very straightforward, and that's the sort of thing that riders really like.
He also seemed to be of the impression that Paul was Dutch, not Kiwi. Which,
well, he does live in Holland, so he is. We are claiming him as our own. So about Peter Bommer's moved on to journalism, so we've got to have a top crew chief.
Coming back to what we were saying about the brands, I think it was Pira Mobility Group executive member of the board, Hubert Tronkenpolz, in the same launch was talking about that, just saying that MotoGP is the biggest possible window you can have for exploiting a brand or presenting it. So it makes absolute sense that they decided to throw GasGas, which is inherently a trial bike manufacturer, straight into a bigger picture. People now talk about GasGas in a wider sense. It's not just a niche manufacturer of specific motorcycles, and whether the Pira Mobility Group end up producing GasGas street bikes or not is sort of by the by, because people associate Pedro Acosta with that brand, with Red Bull. And but one thing I just wanted to ask you, Neil, is because we know the Pira Mobility Group are built like a little network of teams, when it comes in sort of Moto3 and Moto2. Acosta now has his own adventure in MotoGP, but who would you identify as the next sort of rising star through the pyramid? Do we have to look out for Dennis Onchu, or should we perhaps put our chips on David Alonso? I mean, who's sort of the next one, would you say?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's obviously like a lot of very exciting lads in Moto3. David Alonso probably being the pick of them. I'd probably say Alonso at the moment, although maybe it's just because I haven't really thought about Moto2 so much in the last 2 months that my brain is a little scattered with that subject. But Alonso kind of is the one that stands out. I would have said Ethan Guevara, but he had a pretty hopeless rookie campaign in Moto2 last year. So Alonso's probably the pick of them, I would say, at the moment.
I have a question too about MV Agusta. Obviously, MV Agusta has a very storied history in Grand Prix motorcycle racing. I mean, for a long time, MV Agusta was almost synonymous with Grand Prix racing. If MV, now that MV Agusta are part of the Pira Mobility Group, how would we feel if MV Agusta, sort of joined in 2025 as the third KTM team racing a KTM RC16 rebadged as an MV Agusta? How would we feel about that? Would it be sacrilege, or would it be great brand promotion? Anyone? Nobody has any has an opinion on it.
I was waiting
because
for Neil, but
the other because the other thing to me is like MV Augustas have always been inline bikes, inline threes and inline fours. So to have them as a V4, it seems would be very different. Very different.
I mean, it wouldn't actually count on the Constructors' Championship as MV Agusta if they were riding KTM bikes, would it? So it would still be very much a branding exercise. You wouldn't be looking at it as kind of an MV Agusta thing. But yeah, you are right. There is something maybe sacrilegious about such a famous motorcycling institution just being used in that kind of way and not actually in any way being able to kind of contribute its kind of own expertise. It's kind of it's all coming from Austria. But then we have seen that with other kind of famous brands in the past, with Derby and 125s back when Aprilia were trying to kind of push the different number of brands under the Piaggio umbrella. And Gilera as well. Gilera, one of the great motorcycle manufacturers of the first part of the 20th century. So I wouldn't say I have strong feelings on it, but it would be quite strange, wouldn't it?
I actually think the difference between GASGAS, which was a brand completely sort of swallowed by the Pirra Mobility Group. I mean, the actual manufacturing plant that they had close to Girona Airport vanished with that acquisition, is that MV Agusta still have an administration base in Italy. There is a little bit more of a kind of a solidified presence there. And that would probably mean the heritage or the legacy, like you say, Dave, even though it is inherently Austrian, if it comes back into MotoGP, then there's still a little bit more there connected to Italy and to its roots. But maybe just the way it's presented, that's another thing, And now GASGAS has become very much a closer extension of Red Bull KTM, if you like, because of the sponsorship. But you would have to imagine MV Agusta would have a slightly different flavor, even if the machinery is the same.
I suppose the last time we saw an MV Agusta was in Moto2, which was again just a Kalex with a Honda engine. So there's not that much difference.
Triumph.
Or was it with the Triumph engine? There you go. I lose track of when they switched engines.
Before we get on to our next talking point of Sepang, a swift call out to riders and racing fans to head to flyracing.com for apparel and some of the best gear you'll find for the road or the trail. We've talked about the excellent Formula S helmet, but off-roaders can rely on Evo DST, Kinetic and Patrol collections, amongst others. Also goggles, protection and much more. So head over to flyracing.com. Okay, testing times. Dave, explain what's the difference between the shakedown test and the official testing. I mean, who is going to be doing what?
Originally, the shakedown test was meant for the test riders, just to literally do that, to go out and try all the bits on the bike and make sure they don't fall off or the bike doesn't explode and all the rest of it, just to stop the factory riders from having to waste time at the beginning of a test, so they can jump on the test. On the bikes on the test, which starts on Tuesday, yes, and sort of get started straight away. Obviously, with the concession system, that has changed a little bit because both Honda and Yamaha are able to actually ride at the concessions at the shakedown test. Also, the rookies are allowed to ride, so we'll see Pedro Acosta there, and we will see Luca Marini, Joan Mir, Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins there as well. Getting a little bit of extra testing time because they need that extra testing time to join in. So we've got the shakedown test from the 1st of February to the 3rd of February. That's 3 days. And then we've got 2 days off. And then we will have the full test from the 6th, 7th, of 8th of February. No, I mean, the full test is self-explanatory. It's an IRTA test organised by IRTA, which means that all of the full-time MotoGP entries will be there, plus various sort of testing things. So I'm actually quite looking forward to see, what's there, who's got what. We heard at Ducati that Ducati have got a sort of important new aero package. I think KTM will see a lot of new things from KTM as well, and especially what sort of Honda and Yamaha have got. I think Honda, not expecting quite so many exciting updates from Honda, because the pictures from the Jerez test with Stefan Bradl on the bike looked very similar to the bike that they debuted in Valencia last year.
Two questions, Dave, just for people who new to MotoGP or maybe like getting into it. Sepang can be problematic because it tends to rain quite quickly and frequently. So why is the Sepang the first sort of venue that the manufacturers head to get the first taste of new race bikes and potential technology for the season?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to do it. First of all, I mean, it started back when the Japanese manufacturers were dominating MotoGP, and it's sort of closer to Japan than it is to Europe. It's sort of halfway between Japan and Qatar, where the first race of the season is. You're guaranteed warm weather. So you don't have to worry about temperature. It's got a lot of everything. It's got two really long straights, but it's also got sort of places with heavy braking, with changes of direction, with long corners. So there's a lot of variety to the track. It's actually useful for that. And yes, you lose a lot of time every day. You lose. Basically, I mean, it rains in the afternoon, sort of around 4-ish, between 4 and 4:30, and it'll rain for half an hour, and then it stops raining, and then by the time 5:45 comes, the track is bone dry again, just because of the amount of heat. Depending on the humidity can be a bit of a bit problematic. The bigger problem is the heat. Like at 2:00 during the day, it's very hot. It's very difficult to actually ride. That's also the time that the teams like to send their riders out to do long race runs to check both the bikes and the fitness. So I mean, it is quite a good. It's a good general testing track. It will tell you a lot about it, but it needs to be tested. We're sort of in a combination. The next test is going to be at Qatar for 2 days, and that is a lot less useful because Qatar is such a weird track. You're riding at a weird time. It's covered in sand. It's not very representative, even though it produces fantastic racing. It's just not particularly useful.
Just before I ask Neil a question, Dave, are you excited at any other moment as much as you are in Sepang during a MotoGP season?
My wife asked me this as well. Is this the moments that you look forward to most during the year? Yeah, probably. I mean, I have to say, still every Sunday morning, because weekends are long. And now, and especially they've just become so intense, and so you get really tired. But then you get sort of before the start of the race, the 15 minutes before the start of a race, you really start to get the old butterflies in the stomach again. But there's so much to see at tests. It's just people have had 8 weeks to come up with new ideas, and it's always great to go and have a look and see it. And everyone has time. Everyone has time to sort of answer your questions and to have a bit of a chat and stuff. So it's always great.
Neil, when it comes to the overall strategy, if Sepang is about wheeling out the new shit and trying stuff and maybe discarding it, then what's the Qatar test about? Is that more just final verification on some of the experiments that they've conducted in Malaysia and then looking towards the race? Or is there still some maybe last minute plans going on in Losail?
Yeah, it depends, I guess, where the particular factory is at, in what kind of situation they find themselves in. For many of them, you would imagine it's just kind of confirming some details, because they will have made significant changes from what they rolled out in Valencia, maybe with the exception of Honda. So it's just about confirming that in a new track in different kind of conditions. But I guess the one thing that is interesting this year is that the Japanese factories obviously have a lot of concessions, which include basically open engine development through the year, which means that if it doesn't go exactly as planned at Sepang, it's not a total disaster in that they can still bring significant changes to Qatar or even to the first couple of races, and make changes from there. Whereas in years gone by, when there was the engine freeze for them, then it was pretty much all or nothing. We saw Yamaha come to Sepang with a whole host of new items last year, and by the final day, I think Fabio Quartararo had decided to chuck all of them, and basically went with the kind of setup that was closest to 2022 for the start of the season after testing in Portimao. So that was just because it was kind of too late to make further significant changes to what he had tested at Sepang. So maybe the Qatar test will be interesting to see what the Japanese factories do and whether their strategy changes, whether they'll bring significant changes to Qatar as well as to Sepang. Agree with Dave. Qatar is usually quite a particular track, particular conditions, and not always the most reliable indicator of what is ahead. Whereas Sepang, if you look at last year, not saying it's always this way, but last year I remember coming away from Sepang thinking Ducati are in incredible shape, and it wasn't just with Pecco or with Martin. It was all 8 riders looked really strong, and well, it turned out that all 8 riders were going to have their particular day in the sun through the year. Yamaha and Honda were in trouble last year at Sepang, and that proved to be how their season went. I think the big thing was KTM at Sepang looked completely lost, but their strategy was just throw as many testing parts at both Binder and Miller as possible, and then kind of come to a decision on what combination fits best after the Portimao test, and that actually turned out to be quite successful in the end. So I think 4 of the 5 factories last year, we had a good indicator of how their season was going to go just by what happened at Japan.
Yeah, quick thing about concessions, the fact that both Honda and Yamaha are able to update their engines during the season means that it's going to make Jerez and Mugello tests. There's 3 in-season tests after the race at Jerez, after the race at Mugello, and after the race at Misano. Those are going to be very, very important. We could see, an engine update. I mean, possibly after Jerez. I mean, much more likely at Mugello, certainly for Yamaha. Even though Mugello is not a great test circuit for the same reason that Phillip Island isn't a great test circuit. It's such a rider's track. There's so much that a rider can get out of it that it's hard to find really specific sort of details, which is why Ducati switched from Mugello as their main test circuit to Misano as their main test circuit. The Misano is a much more Nadri circuit. It's a lot tighter, and there's sort of harder. Well, there's sort of hard braking, but also much tighter corners and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think those 2 tests are going to be interesting. Misano is probably a little bit too late for an update, and in an ideal world, both Honda and Yamaha will have lost their concessions or their extra concessions by the time we get to the Misano test in September.
Well, we're on the edge of a season that should have had 22 Grand Prix, 44 races, but as we record, the Grand Prix of Argentina is right on the edge of being chopped. Thoughts on that, guys? I mean, Dave, why has this come around? Are we surprised? And Neil, for your thoughts, is anybody really sad about missing out on Termas?
I mean, the track is fantastic. Genuinely one of the best tracks on the circuit, on the calendar. However, it's in the middle of nowhere and it gets no use. So you've got this fantastic facility which doesn't get the use which it really deserves. I mean, if that track was in Spain or Italy, or even closer to Buenos Aires, maybe, it would be absolutely fantastic. It's not surprising given sort of the state of the Argentinian economy, the radical new president they have. He said he was going to cut costs, and that means this sort of spending on tourism, despite the fact that he's sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face, because you're not investing in certain things, and that means that you're not getting the benefits for it. You're not getting the income from tourism and the spending for that region. But not really surprised. If there was going to be a race that we lose, it was going to be this one, and maybe Kazakhstan. We shall have to wait and see what happens with Kazakhstan. As at the Ducati launch, everyone was basically saying Kazakhstan's going to happen, but it's one of those things where it's still very much with an asterisk.
If only Malay would cut his hair the same way that he cut his nose to spite his face, Dave. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame really that the kind of the sole race in South America hangs in the balance. There's always a fantastic attendance in Argentina, not just from Argentina or Argentinians, but from people right the way around the continent, and it's kind of like a celebration, like a mecca of motorcycling from everywhere. In the kind of neighboring countries, you see motorcycles with license plates from so many faraway places. It's a shame that will be stopped potentially. I mean, but from a, you mentioned, will people be happy? I think people in the paddock will be happy, but that's mostly because of just the sort of the way the calendar is currently, that we're sort of at bursting point, 22 races. It's an extra weekend at home, and you are basically, for the majority of people that are based in Europe in the paddock, you are basically taking away one of the longer, more arduous trips of the season. So, can I just say also that the 1 year that I booked my flights for Argentina at the start of January is the 1 year that I get punished for it. So let that be a lesson to all our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, it's also one of the more expensive rounds, possibly the most expensive rounds of the calendar, and it's sort of a bit unfortunate because we don't really. It would have been the third race of the season, which is. I mean, when you want time off, what you really want is one of the races at the end of the season to be dropped, because then you feel like you're getting a little bit of a breather. It's those flyaways at the end of the season which really start to kill you. But so to lose sort of like the third race of the season is a bit of a shame. And the biggest shame is just losing like a base in South America, which is a really important motorcycling market.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say as well, Dave. I mean, I know it depends on economies and governments and decisions, but you can't imagine MotoGP missing out on that market, whether it's Argentina, Brazil, Chile, somewhere around there, because the Argentinian World Superbike round has also been chopped. And from what I hear, the MXGP round, which is going to open the World Championship, has been saved due to some financial or some organizational renegotiation. So that was also likely to be disappearing without that kind of measure. So it does seem bizarre that, MotoGP is not infiltrating that area of the world, but you hope it's going to be a temporary kind of setback or measure. And, in the future, we'll see a Grand Prix in the Americas at some point. Of course, that means the teams go straight to Qatar now for the first race in mid-April, so they're getting a little bit of a reprieve after the Grand Prix of Portugal, so 2 weeks before that one. Right, guys, that's it for this week. Don't forget the Patreon competition, listeners. Sign up to watch us on YouTube or subscribe through any audio channel for where you regularly get your podcast, the audio that is. Want to see or hear something different on our Paddock Pass podcast, then tell us about it on Twitter or on SoundCloud. We'll be back next week from the depths of Malaysia with note shows and a podcast a little bit later than usual on Friday once the test has wrapped.